She's going to explain. It is now 10:10 a.m., September 6th, here at the Senate chamber. And with 5 members present, that constitutes a quorum to proceed with today's committee meeting. I therefore call this Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting to order. Present with us, we have Senator Carl King Neighbors, Senator Selena Babalta, Senator Karina Magofnia, Senator Paul Manglonia, and myself, Donald Manglonia. Senator Dennis Mendiola is excused from today's committee meeting. Before we proceed, can I get a motion for the adoption of today's agenda? All right, a motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We move on to the next item, public comments. All right, if there's none, we now move on to new business. And up for discussion, we have House Communication 2355, House Bill 23-66, entitled "To Make Appropriations for the Operations and Activities of the Government of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, its agencies, instrumentalities, and independent programs, and to provide budget authority for government and corporations for fiscal year 2024 and for other purposes." The committee began deliberating on the budget bill and have worked on, for the most part, the provisions within the budget. And that's what we are going to tackle today. We will go over all the amendments made from the House's version, along with the explanations. And if we have time today, we'll begin discussions on the allocation of the 114 million. Last week, the House Conference, or the House and Senate Conference Committee, met and passed the concurrent, or adopted the concurrent resolution, which will be, which is in both the houses for adoption in front of the full body. The conference committee approved the total identified budgetary resources at 163,415,313. We suspended all earmarks except for MVA hotel occupancy tax, which we left at 4,584,654. We kept the debt service, the bond payments at 3,600,000 and 3,200,000. The settlement fund at 34 million, pension obligation at 2.8 million, and the MPLT loan at 822,000. That leaves our net available resources for government activities at 114,238,931. So before we move on, and so that those viewing can follow along, I'd like to recognize our LA to go over the highlighted portions to identify which changes we'll be making and which was proposed by the House, and some of the actions that the Senate Fiscal Affairs Committee took. And so at this time, I recognize Ms. Jolene Tagobal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For reviewing purposes, anything that's highlighted in yellow reflects the changes made by the adoption of the concurrent resolution reflected in the budget. Provisions highlighted in gray are some amendments proposed by the committee that was provided in the initial discussion. Pink highlights are some of the recent amendments that were made earlier this week, and green are additional provisions for review by the committee for today. Blue fonts are inserted provisions from the House. Anything in light blue are provisions that was taken out by the House. Any gray fonts are previous provisions that have been line item vetoed by the governor, both current and prior. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jolyn. So just to clarify, blue is the House's proposal, or that was in the House's version?
Yes, those are new provisions from the House. Anything in light blue are provisions that were not included in the current House version of the budget bill.
But it was included in the past.
Yes.
So these are deleted languages based on previous appropriations bill. And then gray are vetoed portions of the current bill that have been added back in.
Yes, Chair.
All right, thank you. All right. With that, members, we will just go over each page. All members should have a copy of the same product we'll be working on. For the most part, pages 1 through 15 are versions from 1 through 18. These reflect what's in the concurrent resolution, which identifies our net available resources for allocations, in addition to all suspended earmarks except for MVA. So before we proceed, any discussions on chapters 1 and 2? If there's none, we move on to chapter 3. Page 19, there was a correction made to the Marianas Visitors Authority operations and total to reflect their budget submission. I believe their budget was received after the deadline, if I'm not mistaken, and so our fiscal analyst had corrected those figures. And this, well, it states that MVA's operations is at 10 million for a total of 12 million. This just sets the ceiling should additional funds be realized. Moving on to page 21, lines 7 through 11 was this was vetoed. Any objections to putting that language back in? And this just states that Secretary of Finance shall submit fund status report on the expenditures each quarter or 30 days at the end of each quarter. Page 21, section 403. This was a new provision that was recommended. And it reads, Section 403, donation of leave, notwithstanding any laws to the contrary, when an employee volunteers to donate leave, either sick or annual. But I think we'll take out the annual. It's only sick leave is being donated. Hour salary and shall be converted into equivalent leave hours based on the recipient's current base hour salary. And there's a hypothetical situation, and so basically what this means is that if the donor is getting paid at $10 an hour and the recipient is getting paid at $5 an hour, the 1 hour from the donor that is donated translates to 2 hours that the recipient will receive to match the recipient's salary. Any concerns, questions? Recognize counsel.
I guess when I was working on this yesterday, I was thinking
Council, can you?
When we looked at this provision, we were thinking both annual leave and sick leave. And now that we're limiting it to sick leave, I think the hypo probably confuses people. So I'm suggesting that we leave this language, this part right here. And then we just footnote the ratio rather than having this part here. See on the top, in magenta, the one we struck out, this part says, notwithstanding any laws when an employee volunteers to donate sick leave, the donated sick leave shall be based on the donor's current base hourly salary and shall be converted into equivalent sick leave hours based on the recipient's base salary, provided that the donated sick leave hours shall not exceed 1040. And then we just insert a footnote and just do the ratio formula.
Members, any questions?
Is this to save the government?
To save the government, yeah, essentially, yeah. It depends on the recipient's base salary compared to the donor's base salary.
I'm just concerned, Mr. Chairman, that then there's going to be a lot of paperwork here and it's gonna be messy because, the salary, you're gonna have to define, what happened, this person is getting a salary increase next month and, it's mixing two salaries and all that, it's just a lot more paperwork and I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel that it's gonna be messy down the road. You need to certify again, what's the other guy's salary, that salary, is getting an increase, and then also the donor and all of that, and it's gonna be messy. I mean, unless it's not working the way it is now, they are used the way it is now. Number
Well,
of days.
well, the way it is now is they get paid. If the donor is getting paid less than the recipient, then the government is losing out on is having to pay more for the recipient's salary at a higher rate. If you're just doing hour to hour, if we're donating hour to hour,
It's the same thing, it goes the other way around also, if it's going from lower salary
Right.
to higher salary.
I mean, since this is a budget bill, I mean, this is one method we can use to determine whether this process works or not, and then it could be in future legislation where we can further address the situation. It was proposed that the agencies are having to pay so much and leave when the recipient is getting paid at a higher rate. We did discuss the issues that may come up from OPM in terms of what you just mentioned, the paperworks.
I just want to add that it also works the other way around. There's been abuses in the past where a department has overtime, right? So the boss will say, I'll work the overtime and tells his nephew, oh, don't work on the overtime because you're only getting $10, I'm getting $30. So I'll do all the overtime, and they don't give the overtime to the lower employees. It works both ways, right? Also. So you put value to the hours, and then it becomes consideration when it comes to who gets the overtime also. Right? There's been abuses like that in the past. So I don't know. I just read this for the first time, and And so I don't know what are the other implications. So I'll go along with. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think, don't you have a donation leave bank bill that was introduced? This is something that we can also consider when we deliberate on that, whether this method works. And
Oh, that bill is only to allow not only the immediate relative, but those that have been certified to be required for example, escort, because sometimes the escort is not your brother or your spouse. It could be somebody totally unrelated, but is willing to escort the patient. So in that instance, they're not included. They're not covered by the law. So I don't know if we can include that here, but that's a bill that's, I think, down in the House now. I think it can be passed by the House. Thank you.
Senator Carl, you had something?
Thank you, Chair. I share in the concerns with Senator Magnolia with regards to this provision. However, I do understand the intent of the provision. It's basically to make it so that the hours being donated are correlated, are directly correlated to the salary. So in this event, in this scenario, if I'm making half of what Senator Babalta is making, I would need to donate twice as much because her salary is commensurate of that. So if we're talking about just financial responsibility for entities, I think this is, though I understand the process might be painstaking for it to be implemented. However, I do think that the provision is sound in its endeavor to rectify a problem with leave.
Thank you, Senator Carl. And I think this, I mean, maybe this is something that OPA OPM can chime in, and it could be part of the process where when a person donates the leave, and a form maybe, or a portion to attach to the form could be the calculation or whatever that may be. But that's something for maybe OPM and payroll, and maybe OMB to consider in trying to apply this provision. Any other discussions under this provision? Okay. All right. So while you looked it up, we'll leave this on here as opposed to taking it out, and then at the end we can circle back if that's still something that we need to discuss further. But is everyone okay with the way council mentioned? I know that the additional verbiage is not on your hard copy, but it is up on the screen for members to follow along. And so, council, did you say you're going to take out the hypothetical situations, or leave it as a footnote?
I
Or
think we're gonna take it out and just leave the formula, the ratio, because that was gonna, I think it will confuse people more.
Your hypo is actually very clear and specific, and so we help minimize any ambiguity as far as the calculated.
Okay.
yeah, we can just add it to part of the footnote on the ratio. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on, section 501. The committee had discussed to give the governor an additional 50% reprogramming on top of his 25%, provided that the 25% out of the total 75 shall not be used for any personnel reprogramming into personnel. Any concerns, discussions regarding that? That's on page 22, starting on line 15. So the discussion about providing the additional reprogramming authority was to address GHLI, which the the legislature suspended, in addition to providing any additional assistance to H&P, and Medicaid. All right, Council.
I know that the reprogramming authority of the governor is at 25% by statute. So we're giving him an additional 50, but then it says only 25% shall not be used for personnel. Should it be 50%?
No, it will be 25 of the 75.
75? Okay.
The total reprogram funds.
What's that? So technically, he can only use up to 50% to address any personnel matter. Any other questions or concerns?
Well, then there's something wrong with the math here, Chairman, because you're technically saying the governor has up to 75%, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're saying of that 75, 25 shall not be for personnel, right?
Yes.
But if you read this, that if the governor reprogrammed 75%, which is saying 25% of the reprogram funds shall be. So what's 25% of 75? That's
Hmm.
20% or less than 20, I don't know, somewhere around there. So it's not really 25. It's just the way it's written. So, but I see your point is that of the total budgeted, 25% shall be
25% shall
Yeah.
be used for personnel.
only shall be for
Yeah. The way I'm reading this is 25% is
75.
for operations, 50% for personnel. The
Okay.
way I'm reading this, provided that 25% of it shall not be used.
Yeah.
for-
No. So we can't use 75% for personnel, only up to 50. But then he could use 75 for operations or whatever. Yeah.
Just for clarity, so I'm reading it, provided that 25% of the reprogramming shall not be used for personnel, meaning 50% can be used for personnel. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
So maybe replace the language reprogrammed funds. So provided that 25% of the available
The intention is if we are eliminating vacancies, why are we even allowing them to reprogram for personnel, possibly to hire new people? And then we put in the language that, nobody can get a raise, except the service. So, yeah. So I'm wondering, give me an example of how this could be reprogrammed for personnel.
Why it should be 50% for personnel?
I mean, if there's no new employees that we are expecting,
So would it be for ops, for hours, for?
Yeah.
or WGS, because WGS we cannot.
So we can change that to 20 to 50% then, provided that 50% of the available shall not be used for personnel.
I think, Chair, that would be in line with the rest of the product because we're putting hiring freezes outside of this budgetary
Right.
of this budget period. So if we're giving the executive branch 50% reprogramming for personnel, I don't necessarily understand how that marries up with the rest of the legislation.
Here's an example, the other side of the argument law I made is for WGIs. We cannot control WGIs per se, because by law, they're entitled to merit increases and all that, and that could be used for that. Because we only put a stop to the hiring and the accepted service, which is what we can control basically, but not the WGIs. Subject to availability of funds, maybe.
I,
Should be
I,
added.
I would be inclined to accept that logic if we had an idea of what the impact of the WGI were, right? Then you could validate the 50%. But if we're just gonna put
It
a
was in the
blanket,
public law 7-31. Remember that? We had held WGIs for so many years, and then when funding became available, they started paying those up. Rhoda was one of the first ones. In fact, there's still, I think, some from second that have not received that merit back pay. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, Council.
Is the intent not to allow the governor to program any money for personnel?
well, I guess with that language, it was intended, no? And I just thought of what was the logic to give him reprogramming authority for personnel.
Right.
If we already put in other provisions that do not allow him to give any
Hiring or
increases on the-
increases.
Except the service and the new hires, because we eliminated the vacancies.
Right.
But I can see the WGI being used in the.
I don't think within the next fiscal year, WGI would be part of the conversation because the first step is to restore the 8 hours. So I think maybe limiting the personnel to his mandate of 25%, and then the rest is the cover.
So we just give 50% in this period, right?
No, 75.
75.
Yeah.
But I wanted to use that as a bargaining chip, so. That's our leverage.
Right. But even so, like
Hold the
even
administration accountable.
so, even if we don't put it in now, if we don't touch it, then it's not going to be part of the discussion in the House if we go into conference.
I'm sorry, come again?
We can't use it as a bargaining chip if we don't touch it right now. So when we get it to conference, then we can reduce it and then use that as a.
So maybe we should start low. Low ball.
Would you like to propose anything? 50 of the available funds for reprogramming, or just available reprogrammed fund?
I think it would be best to say for
Reprogram.
instead of the reprogram funds, because you're saying 25% of the reprogram funds.
Yeah.
is WGIs, right? Like,
So 50% of the available funds are for reprogramming. All right. Any other discussion on this?
What's the language again? What are
Yeah,
we
it's
changing?
right there. We're taking out
Oh, provided 50% of the available
funds.
funds for shall not be used for personnel.
All right. Good.
50% of the appropriated funds.
We don't use appropriate allocated funds. Well, no, because it's no, it's 50% of what he can't allocate the 114, right? Because that's BSS is 25%. And then he can't allocate legislature or judiciary, so it's available. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to page 23, section 601, utilities. All utilities will be addressed by central government, and this goes in line with providing the governor additional reprogramming authority. If you look on the next page, on page 24, this was deleted language. LA, that's correct. It was vetoed. Page 24. No, there's a box there that was. This was vetoed in the last or in the current.
That's the current. That was just for reference purposes for utilities.
Oh, it's in the current budget bill.
Yes.
Okay, so we're keeping that language.
The utilities. So if we are keeping that language. This on the agenda. So if we are keeping that language, why would we need the breakdown from Tinian or Rhoda for utilities? Which one is that for?
So Tinian's breakdown is to just address the ARPA usage.
No, but they have utilities there, right?
Right.
So I don't understand how that marries.
Well, it'll depend, right, on our the actions of the committee, but
172,000 for utilities.
Tinian has a breakdown of 172,000 for utilities, and this administrative provision says all utilities, including the municipalities of Rototinian and Saipan and the Northern Islands, shall be paid for by the central government. So I need to understand what the 172,000 is for utilities for Tinian.
recognize Senator Crow.
So are you referring to the current budgetary allocation for FY24, or are you talking about?
The ARPA funds, the 2.5 million
Okay.
was broken down,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And of that breakdown, there is listed 172,000 for utilities.
Okay.
And this is Tinian's share of the ARPA alone.
Correct. Correct. So what's happening is that absent this language, during the revised 23, possibly all departments were kicking back all utilities back to the mayor's office. So utilities under the 23 FY23 budget was supposed to be absorbed by the central government. This is not happening. So the reason for the additional line 20 on page 23
See,
is there to spell out the obligation of the central government to pay for the utilities, because the budget had already said that they're going to go into the utilities. So speaking on the 2.9, I think you referred to, that is no longer the number, because we've been paying, especially for prepaid, right? DPS, DFEMS, those get cut off. And how do you have a municipality without DFEMS having power, DPS? So we've had to the municipality has absorbed the responsibility of the executive branch insofar as paying for power, including comms, for several departments on the island of Tinian. So this is just to have it uniformed across the board to identify who's responsible for that. And if you're asking why that was set aside because of the idea that we weren't going to get operations. But in our discussions here and in the conference committees, all of these CUC obligations should be going to the Department of Finance. I yield.
Thank you. And understood. I do understand the change from the amended FY23, right? Where the central government was supposed to absorb everything, but then you're also setting aside 172,000 from Tinian's ARPA, according to the breakdown we were given, 172,000 for utilities. So can Tinian use that to cover the personnel, the 98 or 94 personnel? Instead, since this language is already embedded in here, and that frees up the 172 utilities from Tinian's ARPA to cover down their personnel costs.
So, if I may, Chair, that was already I'm sorry, that was the discussion. That was the intent. So everything that we can shift over obligations, but again, I'm going to express the concern on behalf of the second senatorial, right? Because this document, this budget reigns hollow when it comes to CUC and Tinian, right? So the mayor is happy and understands the financial instability and struggle that we're going through. So everything that we can find other sources of funding for, the mayor is willing to shift those obligations over to free up the ARPA funds for the personnel. So that was already baked into this language.
The line 20 of page 23. Okay, with that understanding, I can agree to the language put in on page 23, but would it be possible to get something in writing from the mayor that utilities, the 172, could be shifted over to personnel to cover down personnel?
I think the important part, I don't want to speak out of turn, but the mayor is very clear in his willingness to cover down. I think we have a number that we're working on, a whole number, to include multiple different activities that we're shifting over to other places to assist the general fund. So all of this will happen, but it needs to be in concert with the rest of the budgetary process, because we can't piecemeal it. It has to be one whole thing, because Tinian has a plan for the ARPA that they spent. So absent any assurances from the legislature and this budget bill, Tinian is not able to say, okay, we're going to do it. What happens if it gets kicked back? We have Munis logs from DCCA, aging, that are send the mayor, send the request to mayor, going back. So this is not only current, this is back from revised back in May, back in July, back in June. So they're paying for arrears in CUC for different departments. So you can understand the second senatorial's hesitation to obligate these funds in writing without something tangible in return.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Senator Neighbors. But I think also what you're trying to tell me and this committee, and what I'm understanding, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is that the mayor is unwilling to shift these funds unless they condition it upon this budgetary bill that we're working on. And that to me seems unfair. I just wanted an assurance that it will happen. If we approve this, it will happen. I think, and not as a condition of, if they don't get this, we won't give that. Quid pro quo attitude, and I really would like to have some assurance from the mayor in writing that it will happen once we finalize this. And we are certainly, like I said, I'm in agreement to make it in sync with and consistent with all other municipalities, that this language be inserted in there. So I agree with this, that the central government will absorb the municipalities and central, utilities for the municipalities, all Tinian, Rota, Saipan. But if we can get some assurance from the mayor that once we pass this, that 172,000 from mayor's ARPA will be shifted over to cover down the personnel, and like you mentioned, to alleviate some of the general funding pressure that we are trying to distribute equally and in equity to all municipalities.
I think we'll cross the bridge when we get there. If the committee decides to approve this provision, then we as a committee can determine to use that 175 to apply against, and so that'll mean we'll find that'll be that's 170,000 less that we need to find when we get to that portion of the budget. And so for the sake of uniformity and what we will tackle on in the allocations, if we approve this provision, then that's something that we can offer in support of using that portion of ARPA to cover personnel. Senator Carl?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And Senator, I completely understand your apprehension and your wanting to have this a document, right? But I want to also tell the committee and the members and whoever is listening that we are acting in good faith with regards to this budgetary process. And again, we have removed several projects from our ARPA expenditures already and shifted them to various sources of funding. And under the agreement that, as we were talking with Chairman, that we would identify a number that hasn't been already obligated or encumbered. So with that being said, I agree with Ms. Chair that we should just, when this comes to the number side, I think everybody will have a clearer picture of what the second senatorial was able to give into the general fund.
Thank you, Senator Carl. All right. Any other discussion in regards to utilities? If not, we move on with Section 602 hiring restriction. This was the blue portion. It was added by the House, and then the Senate Fiscal Affairs Committee added the gray portion in. This is basically saying that no new positions will be filled unless it's to cover the delivery of public services in DPS and DFEMS. The new portion that was added by the Senate is that we're essentially creating new positions, but taking the NOPs from a different entity. Then this is to address some municipality issues in regards to officers being funded by the mayor instead of the agencies. And so we're laterally transferring positions along with the salary that they're being paid under. Any concerns with 602? If not, we move on to 603, salary cap.
What was the need for 603A? Isn't that by statute? Do we need that language?
I believe the reason why this language was added in addition to the term Schedule A is because there were several proposals to increase certain positions, and so by stating that whatever is in Schedule A shall be the salaries of these individuals, which may differ from what's in statute. Yes. So with the statute, for example, all appointed officials, or most of them, are at a salary range of 54, I believe, but there are certain positions that the House have proposed to increase. For the most part, law enforcement heads. And so that's part of this statute. Additionally, Section B, by statute, resident department heads in the municipalities are supposed to earn 36, but in the past have been getting 45 or 44. Sorry. 45. And so the House proposed to bring it to 40 as opposed to the statute of 36.
So my question is, what happens to those resident department heads who are earning over 40 at this point, Council?
They have, for the current year, they're allowed to receive up to 44, sorry. 45.
But if we pass this, it will bring down their
Bring them to 40. It's still above the statute at 36.
Would that open us up to a lawsuit? They're already earning, some are already earning over 40. And the
Right, because
statute
every
says
year
36.
we suspend that statute
Okay,
to allow them to get
Only
paid
in the
at
budget.
45.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Recognize Vice Chair.
Just quick clarification for the RDs, do they sign an employment contract with the government that states what those salary, the compensation is? Because I think that's maybe where she might be going with the liability, where in the employment contract, when they signed off, it was at 45, but if now we're passing this budget to go down to 40, I guess the question is to the legal counsel, would that have any implication?
If I'm not mistaken, and council can correct me, at least for every municipal employee that are accepted service, their contract is only for the fiscal year. I would hope and assume that it's the same for the RDs, but like the mayor's staff is a yearly contract that ends on the fiscal year.
Okay, that was my only concern.
Yeah.
If it's annually, then I think,
Yeah.
or by fiscal year, right, then it should be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion on 603? We now move on to 604, revolving funds. This provision allows for all departments to use the revolving funds for all others, as opposed to the statute where it specifies what can be used from these revolving funds. And so this is part of the effort to try to allow agencies to cover down on operational expenses from these revolving accounts. Any questions in regards to this? And so I know that the intent, there's questions in regards to earmark funds, but it is the understanding that this would not apply to any earmarks. Right, Council? Is that? As these are special accounts and not particularly revolving funds. Council, do you need to clarify that language?
See, certain revolving funds are restricted to, for example,
Tobacco
think-
settlement.
tobacco settlement or ambulance fee. And the expenditure authority is limited to just like things that relate to the ambulance or that service, but it authorizes them. This one opens it up a little so that they can be flexible to use it for personnel of the ambulance service or whatever they need to for that service that they're providing.
Provided it doesn't undermine the ability to receive the revolving fund.
I think maybe we should indicate that this provision shall not apply to all accounts listed in section 202, maybe. Section 202 has all the earmarked accounts. So these accounts are not subjected to the fiscal year or the suspension of.
So as a last sentence,
Um,
So not be subject to section.
oh wait, here. And except for the what's the yellow? Is that the Senate or House?
That's
oh,
the
it says, yeah,
Senate amendment that's consistent with the concurrent.
Okay. So, okay. Sorry, Council. It's already in there.
Yeah.
So, and except for the suspended accounts as provided in section 6, section 202. Okay. Any other discussions on that? Senator Babata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 16, it says for the following operational expenses, meaning the revolving accounts, except for the earmarks that we suspended, these revolving account funds can only be used for fuel, communications, operational office supplies, and inter-island travel for training purposes. Do we want to, as a committee, further limit that by saying expenses only, semicolon, and list the following, or do we intend, because some department or expenditure authorities over these revolving fund accounts may, because it is silent, may use it for personnel expenses. So do we want as a committee to limit it? And I have a list of all the government revolving accounts, and it amounts to 7 pages, and I have issues with, departments using this for personnel,
Sorry.
which
So
which basically circumvents the planning and budgeting.
no. So the
act, in my
current
opinion.
language is a
Is
concern.
right after expenses, space only, semicolon, or
So for the following operational expenses only,
yeah,
just adding the word only.
yeah. Is that are there any objections to that?
No objections.
I mean, but what about, sorry, Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. What about for those departments with those revolving accounts who
Oh yeah.
couldn't get the FTEs funded, right? So they will now use that revolving fund account to fund those FTEs. There's vacant FTEs that they need. Oh, so there weren't any vacant FTEs that we gave $1, and then because that's kind of what the governor told some of the department heads, right? Will find ways to fund those vacant FTEs if whether through grant or your revolving fund account. So if we
No, I
limit it to
believe the
operational,
House took out all vacant
oh, okay,
FTEs. Um,
okay.
yeah. Council.
I think I just remembered, there's certain revolving accounts, like in the first and second Senate to
Oh yeah,
senatorial
yeah, it
district,
pays for
for ABTC
yeah.
money,
Yeah.
and they use that for personnel.
For enforcement.
It's allowed to hire personnel for law enforcement of ABTC services.
That's according to their statute.
Statute,
Yeah.
yes. So
Okay.
it may be fighting if we put only.
Any other discussion?
Makes sense to me on line 11 to 13. It says all revolving account expenditure limitations, restrictions are hereby authorized.
Yes.
Doesn't sound correct.
Are hereby suspended. Oh,
So instead of suspending it, we're offering.
no, we're suspending the limitations.
But why are we
Uh,
authorizing limitation and
Yeah. Short recess. Short recess. We now rise back from recess, and prior to going on recess, there was a question in regards to lines 11 through 13. And so we are reverting back to the House's version of keeping the term, the language, the word suspended. And we'll be crossing out the rest of the sentence. Any other discussions? None. We move on to the next item, legal holidays. The House proposed to allow the governor to suspend more than one holidays. And that those who do work the holiday shall be paid on a regular rate. Discussion?
Has this been done before? I thought it was like they cut down like 2 or 3 holidays, but has this been done with a whole year's holidays?
When it was austerity, when they declared austerity, I think they suspended holiday pay.
Old holiday or old holiday or just some holidays? I'm just wondering. And then the question is, how much do you anticipate to save on this? Do you know?
If from discussions, 7 holidays will result in close to 2.5, and then all holidays will result in about 4 to 4. I don't know, maybe close to 4.5.
Can we keep 2 holidays at this Christmas or New Year?
No, and that's why I think that's why they left it open for the governor to make that determination, and so they proposed to have the language there of more than one. And so I think this would probably be in the event where collections are short, then the governor may decide to suspend.
Also, the thing here is we'll be leaving it to the governor to decide how many.
That's what the House had proposed, yes.
And what are we proposing?
That's up for discussion.
Should we determine at least the number of holidays and then let the governor choose which holidays? So that we have an idea of what amount we're gonna save, right, and we allocate.
Would anyone like to propose? So I recognize Senator Carl.
Yeah, I would. So are we, in the event that we do agree upon identifying the holidays and allocating or distributing the money into the different activities, does the committee feel comfortable in identifying how many days, or are we not comfortable with identifying any days and leaving it to the governor? My concern is if we don't identify the days, by giving the governor 75% reprogramming to cover down, we've also had in the concurrent resolution language to refund the earmarks, to replenish the earmarks. So I'm curious as to the committee's willingness to identify the holidays and then put the money that is identified into the activities that are needed.
Yeah. If that's something that the committee would like to propose, I would maybe add that these monies could be directed towards GHLI for one. So, recognize Senator Carl.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd offer a motion. I guess the question would be, how many holidays is the committee comfortable with? Dave, what is the analysis for just one again?
I think we ran the numbers here, we have right approximately $3.6 billion.
For one holiday?
One holiday.
How much, Dave?
3 point.
3.6.
Yeah, because right now when we look at the across the board reduction rate by 1 hour, we're averaging about 400 some thousand. So if we multiply that by 8, that would just get us approximately 3.6 billion.
How many local holidays do we have?
We have 5 holidays suspended for the local holidays. That I would say was 18 million.
18?
Yeah,
That doesn't sound right.
3.6 for one holiday, right?
Yeah.
And that's 5 holidays of the local. That's 16, 18 million.
Okay. Well, if we make the determination now, at least to suspend these particular holidays, we'll allow Dave some time to prepare the final numbers for all members, and this will be across all branches, correct? Yeah.
Do we have to include the judges in there? Or
No, those are constitutionally protected.
What?
Right?
Holidays?
Their salary.
Yeah.
Oh.
Except for constitutional. Well, good question. Council, is that something that can be done?
I don't think we can touch it because,
Even if local holidays are not part of
salaries?
recognized federal
yeah,
holidays?
local holiday, they still get paid. They don't work, but salary doesn't go down because it's fixed by,
This is the legislature.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's our council. Are the salaries from the judges created by the Geneva Constitution or is created by this body? Because if it's created by the Constitution, then it's going to be constitutionally protected, right? But if it's created by this body, then it's not going to be protected because it's
Isn't
not.
that a concept?
Yeah, I think
Okay. Anyone want to propose an event? I recognize council.
I remember there was a discussion in the concurrent resolution conference committee that perhaps we should not include Christmas, New Year, and Thanksgiving in the option of the governor to
Right.
suspend.
So that's why I think the vice chair calculated that there are 5 local holidays, which does not include Christmas and New Year. So like Commonwealth Covenant Day, Commonwealth Constitution Day, Commonwealth Cultural Day, Citizenship Day.
Christmas, New Year, and Thanksgiving. Okay. Yeah.
So are the
Yeah, those are.
italicized the local holidays?
Yeah,
So
tho-
Good Friday. It's a local holiday, but the federal, I don't know.
Does that mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we save money though, right? Because it only means they don't get paid, so they just go to work anyway.
No, they won't go to work. It's
If the holiday falls on Tuesday or that, we may come to work.
no, there's still no. It's like admin leave. You won't go to work, and then it is admin leave.
So just not set the hour clock, right?
Jerry, this is going to be the first time for the employees not to be paid on the holiday?
No, in the past, I think governor PT was done it, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think if it's a declaration, austerity declaration, then they don't pay holidays.
Cut the number of holidays.
Or-
In fact, maybe we should look into that.
So if the holidays are cut, it
For the
just means
second,
that
roughly,
employees
what do you,
come to work.
50 years administration?
They won't come to work and won't.
6, 7, 8, 2006, 7, 8, 9,
To work and
10, 11, so
And that's where the
9, 2009, they should, so that's
Okay. Can I get a motion
what are we?
to suspend local holidays?
The 5 local holidays?
Yeah.
Or suspend?
Yeah, well, according to the calendar here, all the local holidays, yeah, all the pink ones are local holidays and there's a
And then on the budget side, other side, there's 1, 2, 5, 10, and 11.
Right here,
Page 29.
yeah, page 29.
1, 2, 5, 10, 11. Page 29.
Okay.
There's some stories that are funded by
Mr. Chair, are we, is the committee inclined to do a suspension on all 5, or are we identifying?
And let the governor choose which of the 3, like if we decided to suspend, so there's a total of 5, right? And if we
Uh-huh.
decide to suspend 3, we'll allow the governor to choose which 2 holidays to observe. Or I don't know, what's the consensus of the members? Are we gonna suspend all?
Or for giving him a number, I think maybe we can.
Because it says, if I'm not mistaken, it says up to, right? It gives a number, shall one or more. So,
Yeah.
what my question would be.
5. Change that to 5.
Change it to 5. So are we saying,
Suspending all 5?
well, that's my question, because the way I'm listening to you is that we're identifying that the governor shall identify 5. Which 5,
Oh,
or
right.
we're saying these out.
I mean, we have to determine first whether or not we want to suspend any local.
Correct. So I guess my question is, if we identify that we're gonna do just one, and then are we able to not identify the day and just give the funds to the activities? So the question would be, are we gonna identify the days and just do that, or are we gonna, because if we leave it as if, then that money will not be.
Or we can just put a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would suggest we put a number and we give the.
So it's just basically changing on line 11, 1 or more to 5. Shall the governor the governor shall select 5.
There's only 5.
Yeah, there's only 5. I thought we were, the offer was 1 or more, right?
Right.
And so are we telling you, you gotta do all 5?
I thought it was, well, that's up to the members, I guess. How many holidays?
I mean, how much are we trying to save? Question mark. How much? Because one holiday equates to $3.6 million. So how much?
So how is it that their calculation was that 7 holidays was 2.5 million?
Just go by what it says.
Here's what we got, Chair. The analysis that I did, for the 2%, in 2 hours across the board, it's about that 100,000. So we take that 100,000 for 2 hours across the board, no? And we divide it by 2, about 450. Multiply that by 8, it's about 3.6 for 1 holiday.
I should see that number.
And if you do use the more holiday, it gives us obviously going to get some 5% of that, because it's free month, right? Or is it even enough?
That's right. Because I can
Yeah.
reassess again.
Executive branch, yeah.
No, because we already subtracted.
It's every, yeah, so 72. They're at 72. So every other Monday.
Well, see, if we're saying that 7 holidays is 3 million times 7, how much does that come out? That's almost a quarter of the budget. No, but the 7, right? If we take 7 holidays, 3.6, that's 25 million. That's half the budget. So that can't be right.
Jeff, these are all the salaries that we extracted from the governor's proposal. We take out 10% of that, or which is equivalent to 8 hours. We come up to about $3.4 million.
But if 7 days
For both the total-
the whole government is 25 million, how many days are we working?
We only have 114 million to divvy up. If 25 million of that is holidays, that's kind of, right? We only have 114 million to work with. And if,
No, not even 114, 70 something.
right, and 7, yeah.
1000 billion.
Like the, I'll be honest.
So.
No, we're still at
Recess.
Okay. Well, before we go on recess, I mean, we can identify that number, and then the figures is something that we can discuss into reallocating. So do members want to suspend?
I mean,
And if so, how many?
I would like to know the value so that we know how many days to suspend instead of the number of days and then figure out how to know. If we have a target of how much we want to save and allocate, then for me, that's how I would determine how many days we want to suspend.
But the problem is, if you don't have one that does it, then
Oh, I want to.
It's 3.4 for days.
Why do this already?
Yeah, you're talking about the whole day, right? That's for only, also you're talking about
to cover down.
you're talking about the annual.
So like,
So we divide
this
this.
is about.
So if we apply the 1 day to all government except for
You already know what the
Talking about the annual and talking about.
All right, we'll take a short recess. recess. Prior to going on recess, we were discussing the holidays, and so the committee had agreed that we will amend the House's language of one or more holidays and give the governor the flexibility to suspend up to 5 holidays, provided that 5 local holidays, provided that but aren't most local holidays within the same pay period as? I think that's where we might have to go back again. But if we just open it up to any 5 holidays, then yeah. So just 5, any 5 holidays, except Christmas and New Year.
I dare him to take away.
I mean, that'll be up to him, right, to decide. But if, yeah, okay. So again, the discussion was to allow the governor to suspend up to 5 legal holidays, provided that the annual leave from these holidays shall be paid towards GHLI, and that not one holiday shall fall in the same week of austerity.
The suspended holiday.
Okay, we'll just leave it as the part where we are all admin leave accrued will be funded to GHLI.
What are we calling it?
Holidays are admin leave.
So move, Chair.
All right. All right. Any other?
Why is it that sometimes we are given annual leave the day before a holiday?
Those admin leave are payable. Don't want. It's holiday pay, but it's holiday. Well, it's holiday leave, but it's called admin.
Languages times 2, I think.
Yeah. But I think when employees apply for leave, it's considered admin, right? No? No, do you need to fill out a leave form for holidays?
Oh, no, not for holidays.
Okay. Okay. Well, all the monies that would have paid for these holidays will be placed towards GHLI. All right. The next provision, 606, marriage license fees. The House proposed to increase the marriage license fees by 100%. The Senate committee proposed to remove that. This is it kind of goes in line with trying to increase any taxes within the budget bill. And so if the House would like to increase marriage fees, and they can do so in a separate budget bill or a separate appropriations bill. Section 607. I think the committee decided to take this fiscal year limitations out. This is based on the Constitution. All funds after the fiscal year shall be applied towards deficit reduction. 60. Any discussions on 606 or 607? If none, we move on to 606. And the new 606, accepted service employees. The legislature recognizes that employees who are on accepted service contract in the government, including the municipalities, upon renewal of these contracts, employees shall not receive a salary increase. Any concerns? If none, we move on to Well, section 702 is, we just corrected the net available. The net available resources based on the conference committee decision. Page 32, under the judicial branch, the committee agreed to indicate that for the last month, September, that the judicial branch shall receive the 12th month allotment on the 15th, by the 15th of August, to allow for the judiciary to use up September allotment within the same number of days as any other month. Additionally, Part C was language recommended by a committee member to allow the court to establish their work schedule and operating hours consistent with what will be approved in the budget. And so if the intent of the committee is to further reduce hours, and that'll just give the courts the authority to adjust and not necessarily follow the same operating schedule as the other branches. Recognize?
Thank you. On line 6, page 32, it reads, as a part of the statement or the provision that says, provided that the allotment request for the last month of the fiscal year shall be made no later than August 1st and shall be remitted in advance on or before August 15th. Do we mean September 1st?
No. So September 1st is when the last month allotment comes in.
Yeah.
So the judicial branch can request for an advance by August 1st, and that the advance shall be placed
Oh,
on the
okay.
account by the 15th.
Allotment request. Okay, got it. So clarified.
All right. 33, just indicating that allotments will be monthly to the legislative branch. Page 34. No, any objections to keeping the leadership accounts? The House reduced leadership accounts by 100,000. We all good?
Dave, do we know how much the impact is to the members? Have you made that calculation? Reduction of the leadership account.
Down to 100,000, it was up to 200,000, now it's down.
So by half.
Yeah.
So clarified.
What happened? Sorry, what was the discussion? We good?
No, I just asked the fiscal analyst to provide a fiscal impact. So my understanding is that the leadership account is 200,000 per house, and it is now being proposed to be reduced by half of that. So I just wanted to seek clarification from him.
Did you get your clarification?
Yes, sir, I did.
Sorry, I was. Okay. Any other discussion? If none, we move on to executive branch.
Question on page 35, line 20, executive branch. Lieutenant Governor shall be the expenditure authority of the funds appropriated to the office of the Lieutenant Governor. Is this language necessary? I think by Constitution, Governor has the authority to utilize the Lieutenant Governor's account. And by inserting this, we are possibly, prohibiting the governor from doing so. And I believe it's contrary to the Constitution. So, counsel, if you can clarify.
So it's like I can touch your account.
Governor has the authority to tap into the lieutenant governor's account, to the special assistant for administration.
Right, his programs,
yeah.
his government programs, but
Not necessarily all. I know of those two particular agencies that he can unilaterally, and it has been practiced in the past.
Share something this morning about the electric plants. I was just emailed by Vicky about one position from the customer sector that is not included in the budget. So I just want to bring it to your attention. It's asking whether we can put that FD.
how are they funded? How are they being funded now?
No, now it's not funded.
So she wants a new
Yeah.
one new FD for customs stipend.
Right. It was not included in the budget. Yeah. I think this employee.
Unless that employee is already going through the process, then I would think.
I think this employee has been working for the customs for many years.
But he was omitted in the budget.
Yeah.
Um,
So I can.
we'll verify the NOPA, and then if it's already in the process, then it's not a new vacancy, right? It's just, okay. We'll finish chapter 7 and then we'll take a break for lunch. We're 2 chapters away. So, Senator, page 36, we don't need the top because that's already addressed. Senator Call, correct? The part D on page 36 on the top. Yeah. So that, okay. Yeah. 706, we're just putting back what has been the practice in prior years, that each council member shall be responsible for his or her account. And then on page 37, this is in line with the lateral transfer. The 3 NOPs that are assigned to Rhoda Customs pursuant to a MOU by the mayor shall be transferred to Rhoda Customs. And so these are the 3 positions. These are 3 sworn customs officers that are currently being funded by the mayor and shall be transferred over to customs.
Only 2 of them now are in the budget. One of them is not included. And so we would have to fund the one that's
No, I think we'll just subtract 1. We'll still subtract 3
right.
and the same salary
Yes, but
Yeah.
where are we gonna get the funding for the other one? That's
from the mayor's personnel.
what account? I mean, it's not showing the budget. The one,
We'll just reduce their total personnel allocation by that 1 extra employee. Recognize Senator Babalta.
I have a question.
Will the 3 NOPs that are being transferred to Rhoda Customs be the same employment status, accepted service, or
No, civil service.
can we indicate? Do we need to indicate that in the provisions? Because a lateral transfer is accepted to accepted.
Everything's the same. I think if it's a civil service position and.
But nobody under the mayor's office is civil service.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, from accepted to civil. From accepted to civil.
Can we
I mean,
create
we can take out
civil
the,
service positions?
Yeah.
We can? Legislature can?
that's the
I-
NOPs that we're adding in.
I think we should state that in the provision that they shall be civil service.
No, I think we just need to change the lateral transfer portion in the
Okay,
budget.
in the
that-
NOPA.
So we're
Lateral
establishing
transfer,
new positions, but we're
civil
not
service.
adding, we're not funding. There's no new funding to be.
I know, but the employment status is what I'm asking for from accepted service, which is a contract employee, into a civil service, a protected classified
Yeah.
position. So I think that should be indicated in, I feel it should be indicated in
Yeah.
the.
Or in other words, so we're establishing three new customs officers position.
Are they civil service when they
Yes.
transfer? So that is not indicated here because a lateral transfer, my understanding is from OPM rules, a lateral transfer is if you're accepted service and you transfer into that NOP into another division or department, it still is accepted service. So do we intend to make them permanent classified positions by being under the Civil Service Commission? If so, if that is the intent, I think it should be indicated in the administrative provision.
Can we make someone an accepted employee into a civil service? Because those are two completely different.
Yeah, I know there's two methods with OPM is the person resigns and then applies. There's another the lateral from, and we can get clarification when we go in recess that the lateral would be there's kind of like a break in contract, but it's a conditional employment on their next position while they go through the whole NOPA process. Okay, so we'll table this part until we get clarification over the lunch recess. So right now we only have one item on the table that we're tabling, and then 707 second senatorial district. Senator Carl, do you know if this is something that you want to take out or leave in?
Thank you, Chair. I spoke to the members and they're okay with the language as is.
Okay.
So we can leave that in the.
All right. No new changes to 708. Under 709, Part D just added the term his or her, depending on who the designee will be. Part E, it's just mentioning that all funds transferred to the health network program shall be non-lapsing, and that all of the funds transferred 50,000, no less than 50,000 shall be set aside for Internet Island medical referral patients stipend for first and second senatorial district. On page under Part E, lines 19 through 21, Inner Island patients shall be treated as off island patients. Any concerns regarding Part D or E? I recognize Senator Babauta.
Thank you. With respect to section E, line 13 to 15, this in essence is, well, first of all, it's a proposal from the House, correct?
Yes.
Notwithstanding any CNMI laws or regulations to the contrary, all funds appropriated to the CNMI Medical Referral Program or Health Network Program shall be non-lapsing and shall not require any further legislative action. This, in essence, is creating another revolving account. Council, can we get your opinion as to whether this is creating a revolving account absent a statute or direct funding source other than the CNMI appropriations revenues?
Oh, sorry. This is language in the current, but the fiscal year 23 budget. The House took this out.
Do we have money in Schedule A for CMI?
I mean, there are several legislations that would support the funding needs of H&P. So those would be non-lapsing anyway.
Into
But
the health network program?
it's like it's
Is that how
creating a
the
revolving fund
enabling
account.
statute creates their account? Non-lapsing.
Yeah, it's a program within CHCC, so it's not
Okay.
we don't have access to any other programs within CHCC, and those are non-lapsing.
Mm.
Sorry. So all the blues under this portion were taken out by the House. Just wanted to make that correction. But I think we at least need to put back 19 through 21.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so we'll take out 13 through 15. Put back 19 through 21. On page 40, I think we'll remove 4 through 7 because of the provision that would now treat Inner Island as South Island. That's just the process should apply. Any other discussion on that provision 709? If not, we move on to part C, elected attorney general. No, we're taking that out because now they'll be treated as off island. Page 41, line C, the House took out. Sorry, LA, is this these were stricken from the budget bill? Because I know we were discussing yesterday the charging fees too. Okay. So what's with the last sentence? Okay. I think we were under the impression that we're gonna keep the blue portion and then apply the magenta portion, but because the House took it out, are we gonna leave it out, members?
I'm okay with leaving it out.
So they won't charge any fees. They'll just provide their services and have the agencies cost share, right? All right. So we just have that one sentence on C. Part D, Senator Babalta, I know you had some concerns. Any update?
Can we circle back on that? Like the one,
All right, so we'll address this after lunch. Medicaid reimbursement, the Part E Medicaid program, the magenta portion. This was a language that was provided in the current fiscal year, and that this would support the needs of Medicaid to be able to address some of the shortfalls in the other business units under the director of the Medicaid agency. Any concerns regarding that? If none, we move on to 711 DPL. The gray portion that you see, the 7 NLPs, 4 from Parks and Recs, 4 from Rhoda, and 3 from Tinian. This was vetoed. And so the House added it back in. Yes. This is another attempt to allow for Rhoda and Tin to sign that MOU agreement with DPL if that's something that is can still be considered. And this is to allow the 7 total, 4 from Rhoda, 3 from Tinian, to be partially funded through DPL. Dave, recognize?
Just want to share something with the members out there. You know the budget for lifetime Parks and Rec? If you look at the personnel, they're only funded 50%. The 40 employees from the lifetime Parks and Rec are only funded 50% for 2024. With the understanding that DPL will fund the other 50% based on MOU. So when they look at the budget of DPL, it's not included.
It's on a charge basis.
Yeah, but just understand that, but it's not budgeted. I just want to bring that up. I confirmed that with the Secretary of DPL, and she said that, yeah, it's not part of the budget, so.
No, but could it be under their all others?
That could be, but when I talked to her and asked her whether it's included in the budget, it's not included in the budget. Just want to point that out.
Right.
Chairman.
How much is that?
What will happen with it?
Okay.
And we get bring this up during our meeting with OMB and sector banks.
I think that is needs to be addressed because I think that's the time employees, right? So if DPS not gonna cost share.
Okay. All right. We can get clarification and we'll address that in the allocations portion. But in what we have right now is just adding back again Rhode and Tinian to allow these municipalities to make that agreement with DPL. Any concerns with that, members? If none, we move on to 702. It's just maintaining that that the Secretary of Finance or all expenditure authorities report to the legislature fund status on their expenditures and personnel on a quarter basis. And that failure to do so will suspend future allocations until those reports have been addressed. Part B is the access to the Munis FMS, which was vetoed, and so it is the House and it is our position that we will continue to request for access to these systems in order to get a bigger picture of our finances and where we're at in regards to revenue collection and expenditures. Any concerns regarding 712? If none, section 713 violations of spending limits. With which? Yeah, 713 it's similar language, right, to this current fiscal year. However, we have seen that even if an agency is trying to pay for something that they don't have the money for, they need that password that finance has. But even so, if they're able to circumvent that password portion, that these expenditure authorities shall be shall receive a 30-day salary suspension until a fiscal plan is submitted to the legislature on how they intend to restore those funds. Any questions? Do you just want to? It's very quick. The last one. It's 801. Yeah, it's just an outside source. Yes. All right. Thank you for everyone's patience and cooperation. We will close out our morning session, or the first part of this budget bill, by closing out Chapter 8, administrative provisions, particularly outside sources. We're just acknowledging that there are outside sources that have been projected. That, for example, Commonwealth Worker Fund is estimating to receive close to $2 million for the following fiscal year. All funds appropriated to the scholarship, CNMI scholarship from elected officials, that the administrator of the scholarship office shall provide a report at the end of each quarter. In regards to the CW fees, any fees that are approved for these educational institutions, that the expenditure authority of these institutions provide a report to the legislature in regards to how those monies are spent. And then also, based on the advice by Senator Babauta, that the CNMI will not be receiving compact impact funds for next fiscal year, that portion be taken out. And even if we do receive compact impact funds, those have we have no expenditure authority over those funds, as they are intended for a specific purpose, based on OIA. And so if by some miracle President Biden approves compact impact funds, then those can still be used to address, absent it being included in this budget bill. Any concerns or discussions regarding Chapter 8? If there are none,
Yes, I do. Articles that were published.
Recently, yes, but the President Biden did not propose anything in his FY24 proposed budget to U.S. Congress, and so there's zero there coming from the president. Recently, the Compact of Free Associations concluded their meetings with U.S. Counterparts and COFA states, and they came to an agreement, and they realized that the impact, even Guam has acknowledged the impact of having zero compact impact funds in the next coming fiscal year, and possibly permanently. But I do have articles that have been published that the President Biden has not allocated any funds under compact impact, and that is the direction they are taking. But I'll share that with the
do we
committee.
know if it's being discussed in Congress, though, to add
Mm.
those back in?
I have no knowledge of that. I can certainly get in touch with our delegates office and see what they know from their standpoint in Washington, D.C. And I will share the articles pertaining to compact impact funds with the committee.
All right, thank you. And so, can I recognize counsel?
Just clarification on the AG part of the fees.
Yeah.
So if we're striking that, should we strike?
Even that last sentence. All right, members. Before we head into lunch, which there are two items that we've tabled, and we will go back to those discussions when we get back. It is the three NOPs for the customs in regards to the lateral transfer language, and then the public assistance expenditure authority. Correct, Senator Revolta? Is that? Oh, and the lieutenant governor statute. If there's anything in the Constitution that this would affect. All right. With that, let's recess until 2. All right. We'll take a lunch recess and we'll be back at 2 p.m.